Tom's like, you didn't really say that, did you? Well, welcome to RU 703. Good to have you all here today. I hope nobody drowned on the way in here. It was really funny because it was like nice, right, after school, and all of a sudden it wasn't nice. And yeah, so now it's getting a little bit better. I just stayed in here and hid. But glad to have you guys here. Hope you're doing well. We're just here to help each other to find and maintain and grow our walk with the Lord. Something I've been learning in the last couple of days is that God is pretty serious about teaching us things. And when he wants to teach us something and he gets pretty serious about it, we really need to let him. And it's usually pretty uncomfortable, but it needs to be done. And we have to say okay and let him do, because the option is we can say no and he'll withdraw and not teach us, but that ends up being worse. So it's really scary and it's hard to do to allow the Lord to teach you something, but it's really good because when you allow him to, you allow him in, and then it grows your relationship with him, and you get closer, and then he can take care of you, protect you, help you, heal you better, and then he wants to teach you more. So it's just an ongoing thing. But I'm glad to have you guys here. Hopefully maybe some others will come canoeing in here in just a minute. We'll see what happens. Let's go ahead and go through our 10 principles. 10 principles, again, just help us to make wise decisions. Life is all about decisions. And there's, I heard a preacher, I have in the front of one of my older Bibles, I think I have 50 different verses on how to make decisions in 50 different areas of life. And it's really cool because God wants us to do that. Now, these are specific principles for the things that affect us in the sense of sin and fighting sin and victory over sin and things in our life. That's what these are for. But there's principles in the Bible on everything. Finances, relationship, you name it. It's there. And it's a neat study sometimes. Go through and just collect decision-making verses and kind of study them, go through them, and get those decisions made and locked down. And then when the thing comes up, you're like, oh, got that one. Let's go. As opposed to, what do I do? Because that's always harder. So, number 1 says, if God's against it, so am I. I never really think that that's actually working. Number 2, every sin has its origin in our heart. Number 3, it's easier to keep the heart clean than to clean it after it's been defiled. Number 4, we cannot fight a fleshly appetite by indulging in it. Number 5, small compromises lead to great disasters. Number 6, those who do not love the Lord will not help you serve the Lord. Number 7, our sinful habits do hurt those who follow us. Number 8, it's not possible to fight a fleshly temptation with a fleshly weapon. Number 9, we lose our freedom to choose when we give in to temptation. Our consequences are inevitable, incalculable, and up to God. Number 10, God balances guilt with blame. Accept the blame for your actions, and God will remove the guilt. Psalms 1 says, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. That is. I'm going to do this, and then maybe something else will happen. We'll just have to see what comes after this. The Proverbs, good job. The Proverbs I have today is Proverbs chapter 10. And Proverbs have been really a little bit different this time through, for me. I mean, obviously they're still the same. But God has just done some really different things for me with them. I was looking back at, I have to go back and see exactly where it was, but somewhere starting in chapter 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, I realized that I had used the exact same starting verse for 2 of them. And when I go through my notes on my phone, all I have is, meditations, the chapter, the verse, and then the first line. And so I thought, did I mess up here and copy this one twice, accidentally put it in there twice? And I didn't realize that I started with on talking about attaining wise counsel, and the next one was attaining wise counsel, exact same start, my sentences. And I started reading it, and I realized I was talking about 2 totally different things. And so it's just been really interesting. I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm kind of a little bit off today. But what is it? Preacher said one of his pastors always preached on the same subject and almost always on the same verse just for years. Remember that? I don't know, it was Tom Malone, somebody, and said, I can never run out. It's the Bible. I'm sorry. Yes, but it was always different. But it was the same, preaching on the gospel, I think it was. And, we think, well, I've heard that verse before, and we shut it down. I heard that preached on before, and we just kind of stopped listening. I don't need to because I already heard it. And that is, this is not a bragging thing. It just occurred to me, if I've been doing the Proverbs now for 2.5 years, I think, that's almost 800 of them. I'm like, what could you possibly say? Because it's over and over and over and over again, just the same 30, divide that by. And it's always fresh, it's always different, it's always new, and it's always just exactly what I need. And God never ceases to amaze me at that, how I come to Him. I did the other day. I told you this when I preached the other Wednesday night. I got up there and said, this is really hard for me because I don't know anything about heaven. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And God, because I really was very unsure of myself and unconfident, and the Lord actually used that, according to other people, and it went well because He did something with it. And I went to do a high school chapel the other day, and it was kind of the same thing. I had this, and even as I stood up, and I'm not scared of the teenagers. That's my comfort zone. Besides you guys, that's where I live. And I opened my mouth, and it was not even what I had written down. It was just different. And I went to do elementary chapel this week, and it was the same thing. I'd worked late into the night getting my message ready and all this, and I got up in the morning, and God kind of said, no. And I just always tell Him, no, you don't understand. I've got this ready. And He says, no. And it was what I needed to do. So He's helping me learn to trust Him, which is kind of a hard thing. But anyway, so meditations, Proverbs 10, verses 20 and 21. It was today. Let's see here. Verse 20, the tongue of the just is as choice silver. The heart of the wicked is worth little. The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for want of wisdom. And I always love how he has the opposites. What's that word I'm looking for? He says this in the contrast. That's the word I was looking for. He does that a lot, and I really enjoy it. So as I was reading this, that's the one I kept coming back to. And so this is what he asked me. And so I'm asking you, have you ever watched your words? Do you listen to what you say? Because we talk all day long. That's what we do. We talk. Or we're listening to somebody talk, but we do a lot of talking. There's few people that don't speak much. There's some, but most people, we enjoy talking. We're talking about ourselves, explaining what we know and kind of showing off and all that stuff. But do you ever stop and actually listen to what's coming out of your mouth? Because God has something to say about that. We really need to listen to what comes out of our lips. And again, I'm not talking to anybody here. Please understand that I'm talking to me. So if, I did this one time and somebody said, why are you talking about me? Why'd you use me for an example? And I was like, I didn't. Because it really doesn't. It's not. It's me. We need to listen to what proceeds out of our mouth. We have to examine what kind of words we speak. The words of a wise person, it says right here, are choice words. The words of a wise person have worth. They have value. Silver's expensive. It has value. It has worth. The words of a wise person even in their casual conversations, we're just talking, are not, but here's the deal, they shouldn't be destructive. They shouldn't be defamatory. They shouldn't be degrading. Okay, a wise person is not always, and this is something that people think they have to do this somehow. It's not just, I'm not talking about speaking in King James. You know, it's like kind of, it sounds like you're always quoting Bible, but that's not what I'm talking about at all. That's not what I'm talking to have wise words. It's they don't have evil words. And when I say casual conversation, it's when you're sitting there, what we call it, shooting the breeze, doing things with bulls, you know, and things like that. That's what I'm talking about. Just talking. It doesn't have to have a lot of meaning. It's not like you're trying to teach somebody all the time. Not that, but just casual conversation. But still, those words, because I catch myself going down the road of, did you see what he was doing, Elijah? Did you sketch that? Did you show what they, you know? And we're like taking this person and filleting them and ripping them apart and doing that. And we don't even think about it, but we need to think about it because that's not. I'm pretty sure that's not a casual conversation that Jesus would have. And it's not. We have to always be thinking, now, what would God say here? But we have to listen to what comes out. The words of a wise person are, by definition, they're going to be fitly spoken. I love that phrase from Proverbs, they're fitly spoken. They're going to feed the simple. That's what he says right here. They correct the one who is straying. They heal the hurting. They instruct the ones who are seeking. They lift others up. Even their casual conversation is positive and not negative. And you know, we are going to talk negative here and there. But the habit, the drift, the overall content of our words. If our words are worth little, if our words are generally negative, if we tear people down more than we lift them up, we've got to examine ourselves. There's a problem. That is not what God wants. If our words are just fluff and if they have no substance, most of the time we need to check the content of our heart. Because if we don't have much from God in our heart, our words will be what I call self-words, words with no value. There's nothing wrong with fluff words with no substance. But if that's all we say, if almost all of our conversation is just basically meaningless conversation. I know, Tom, you live kind of by your words. The work you do, you're always talking and planning, and you have the meetings, and right. So words are very, very important, and those are important words. And I'm not saying they're not. Those are important words, but those aren't the only words you speak. And I guarantee you, I just know you well enough to know that even in there, the Holy Spirit is using you to speak words that are helping people. I know that you can't get in to preach, and I understand that, but I still know you well enough to know that the Lord is using you to lift people up, to help people, encourage people. That's what I'm talking about here. If our words just don't have anything, then they don't have anything. God's plan is for each of us to feed those around us. That's why we're here. That is why after we're saved, why are we not in heaven? Because God has a purpose for us. Our purpose is to seek and save those which are lost. Our purpose is to allow God to speak through us when he needs to, and that's what we need to do. Then it's not, even Jesus, I'm sure we only have the words recorded that are recorded from Jesus. And I'm sure he sat around and talked with the guys about fishing. I bet you he had long conversations with some of those guys about carpentry and how to build things, because that's what he grew up doing. There's nothing wrong with that. But even then, those were helpful words. He didn't sit around and talk about that other disciple. He could have sat down and had discussions about Judas, you think? Because he knew, right? He knew. But he didn't say, hey, Peter, have you been watching what he's doing? He didn't ever went there. Okay, it's just a thing for us to think of. So God's plan for us to feed those around us. We're fed by the words of wisdom that are from God, spoken by wise people around us. I have tried for the last 5 or 6 years, I want to be around people I consider wise because I want them to lift me up. I seek that out. I don't seek out the people that aren't going to do anything for me. If you want, but it's not a selfish motivation either. When I want to be around, I want to spend time with Jim Morton. I want to spend time with Tom Frederick. I want to spend time with Richard. I want to spend time with Quinn. I want to spend time with Dustin. I want to. I don't want to spend time with the guys out there that are going to pull me down. I don't avoid them, but if they seek me out, I try to be that guy to help them. Does that make sense? So I'm getting wisdom from other people, but God also expects me to give wisdom out to other people with my words. And it's a two-way street. That's what we should be doing. We need to look at, we need to listen to, we need to evaluate the words that proceed from our mouth. Our words are a testimony to what is in our heart. We can and we must examine our heart by examining our words. I use illustrations out of the school a lot because that's where I live. And so I don't talk a lot. I don't have a lot of conversations with the teenagers. I'm not, I don't sit down with you, Elijah, and hey, let's just talk. That's not me, right? I don't do that much. But I listen a lot. I listen to them talking. And sometimes it just kind of hurts me, my heart, to hear. They're not cussing. They're not saying inappropriate things, but just the general trend of their conversation. I hardly ever hear them talking about the Lord, and they're not bad people. I love these kids. Pastor preached last night about crying. I really wish he hadn't preached that. So with my heart, I was thinking about that stuff. I had a conversation with Brother Clint today about some of the kids and just some things that just really been on my heart. And he left the room, and I sat there this morning. I'm going to do it again. I cried for 15 minutes just sitting there in my room. I didn't have any classes for 2 hours. It's kind of okay. The walk-in, what's wrong with you? But it wasn't because not because I'm frustrated, not because I want to quit, although sometimes I feel like that, but it's just my heart was broken because I love these guys so much, and I just sat there and cried because one of the things is I stand there and I listen to them, I watch them. Our words are a testimony to what's in our heart, and it concerns me what's in their heart. Not that it's bad, it's just that it's not what the Lord wants. So I love that guy right there. I do. And I think that he has a good heart. And I've never heard him talk poorly about other people. I've never heard him. I'm sure he probably does somewhere. But not where of course, I don't hear well anyway, so you're usually pretty safe with me. But on the other hand, and this is not a slam to you, Elijah, I don't think I've ever heard him talk to anybody else about anything that has to do with the Lord. Now, that may not be true. You may do that. I'm not saying you don't. But the conversations that I do hear, and so not a criticism, Elijah. I don't mean that in any way, shape, or form. But we need to look at ourselves. We need to let our words go up on that teleprompter, and we need to see what we're saying. And we need to examine it because it's super important to God because that is what's on our heart. That is what's on our heart. I could go around the room and I could tell you my impression of your spiritual condition, and that doesn't make it true either. Whoa, I'm not judging. I'm not doing that. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's not my business where you're at, Rich. But I do, and God expects us to. It's called discernment. He expects us, but that's not the purpose of this at all. We need to do that for ourselves. It's not my job to go tell Dustin where he's at. It's not. It's just not. It's my job to see where I'm at. Okay, I'm just saying we do that. We always do that for other people. Let's turn it around to ourselves. And not as a criticism to ourselves, but say, yeah, maybe I should work on what's in my heart. and maybe pay attention to actually the conversation I'm having over here. Is that really helping anybody? Now, after I had that conversation and I walk away, are they saying to themselves, that guy, there's something different about him. He says he's a Christian. I kind of, maybe it's kind of real. Or is he saying, he's a Christian? So that's what I got out of this. The words of the wise, the tongue of the just is as choice silver. The lips of the righteous feed many. Or the heart of the wicked is little worth. Fools die for want of wisdom. I would like to feel that I have some worth. I would. That's not for me to say, but it's for me to kind of judge myself too. All right, so that's kind of what I got there. Go ahead and turn that thing off there.